Assalamualaikum and very good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining PAM online series. This is possibly our last episode for this season. We actually were planning for two more episodes for this season, but unfortunately, those two episodes had to be postponed to next season, starting from September. But we will keep you informed on the topics, the future episode or future topics. Um, so this is the online series, as we mentioned before. The online series vision is actually to function as a new broadcast house in exchanging information, sharing information, and discussing any issues that we think relevant, not just limiting to practice of architecture or the design or building design, but it's also on the peripherals of architectural subject matter. Today's is a very good example on that. We'll be having a conversation not so much on architecture specific, but more on other expertise or areas that architecture can venture into to complement the core practice of architecture. So the topic that we have today is a bit provocative to some or to a few, but we like the topic. We'll be talking about future practice. We put it as an alternative modes of practicing architecture. So we put here the modes of practicing architecture. It's not really the form of practice of architecture. It's more like, what are other things that we can do besides pure architecture? So we observe that quite a number of young groups actually incline to go into specialties based on what they inspired to do, or what the natural creative idea that they have. So which is a good thing. So what we want, what PAM online series want to explore is that what are the possibilities of capitalizing these modes of practicing architectural services to complement or to add on the core architectural consultancy practice. So that's a subject. Hopefully, the conversation today will open up to a new series on its own on this future practice, where we can talk about what are other business models that we can do, what are other the technology available that can support this kind of what I call micro office or cloud office, or something similar to that. I don't have a fixed idea, but that's the whole idea of having this conversation. But the whole content for today's conversation is very much curated by Sufyan Shahabuddin. He's an ex-council member representing the graduate. So he is the key person curating this together with the moderator Shamim Sahrum. So thank you very much, Sufyan and Shamim, for doing all this.
No worries.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So Shamim will do the detailed introduction of the speakers. But what I gather is that what we have is that we have somebody who are focusing into research oriented practice, another going into architecture and lighting, combining this creativity together, and another speaker is actually going into expert into parametric design solutions, especially using Rhino and Grasshopper or something similar to that. We know a bit more detail in later conversation. So to me, it is a very good topic to explore, and there is a lot of potential on what the outcome of it. So we're hoping that in the future episode, we'll be talking about the various business model of architectural consultancy practice and other tools that support. Jun, would you like to say something to the audience before we start? I'll go the opposite. Shamim will get the last.
Hi. You want me to introduce myself?
No, you just say that whatever that you want. Shamim will introduce you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me today. I think it'll be an interesting opportunity to have a conversation like this. I think we all come from very similar backgrounds, but I think we're still on very different trajectories. But I think it's a time where we can kind of like sit down together and really find solutions to the kind of obstacles we are facing now, especially with the new normal, and how to be really innovative with how we operate, I think, as architectural designers or architects. Yeah.
Shiela?
I second everything Jun said. But yeah, first of all, thank you for having me, Sufyan, Sophie, and Sam. And it's good to see family faces, Jun. I mean, Warith is first time seeing you yesterday. Yeah. I think it's a good thing to talk about, especially for this generation and the future generation, to talk about future way of practicing. Yeah.
Warith, based on your experience outside, across the shore, across the ocean.
Thank you everyone for inviting me to be part of this, and I'm very much forward looking to discuss these matters with my colleagues. I see Jun Ong and Shiela and Sufyan and Shamim as my colleague. We are peers. So it's interesting time now because of the COVID, and then things are changing, still are changing in the way we practice and the way we see ourselves, especially the graduates, and how they can develop themselves into the practice later on. So I think this is going to be an interesting discussion between us.
Shamim, before I pass to you, because when I pass to you, then you will take over the session. Sufyan, do you want to say?
Yeah, maybe just quickly. I'm grateful to have the lineup that we have today. Thanks, Shamim, for organizing it. But I think mostly what I hope for everyone to take away from this segment is to leave feeling inspired, because what it has opened up, despite all the problems and the pandemic that the world is facing, it also has opened a lot of opportunities, and I hope that the panel today can start discussing that for everyone to be a bit more aware and probably to take action on it.
Shamim, I have a question for you actually. Do you think that starting this series, online series and conversation, that would help to attract graduate members to cooperate or collaborate or participate in PAM a bit more, and tell PAM what you need in order for you to be actively involved? Do you think this kind of series would help?
I think this series would help, but it would be even more productive if there was some sort of an offline gathering as well. So you could directly talk to us or any collective or like bright-minded individuals. I think people would like the online-offline thing to collaborate more. At least they get to go to the building itself. So I think it's trying to balance both of like the online world and then in real life. Yeah. I think it's
face-to-face. Yeah. Okay, that's a good idea. I think I'll forward that proposal to the new PAM Council.
Okay. So thank you to AR1 Sophia for setting up this platform. Thank you to Pam, and thank you to Sufyan for inviting me to collaborate on creating this series. We have an amazing lineup from one from halfway across the world, and thank you, Warith, and thank you, Jun, and thank you, Shiela. I know it's not easy to get like that slot out of your hours, your daily hours to do something like this, but we really appreciate it here. So before I start, so I'm Shamim Sahrum, people call me Sam. So I will be the moderator for this session. I am part of a collective with Nonadra called No to Scale. So we're a design research platform that collaborates on things like talks, like writings. So this is, I guess, an opportunity for us to pick like-minded individuals and see where this topic could go. So on the idea of future practice. So let me start on basically what the theme or what we want out of this session. So these individuals are brought together here for this session as they have experienced diverse working cultures, and what I would say, they've experienced the new frontiers of design, especially macam when it relates to Malaysia lah. And it's hoped that this conversation could help young architects in navigating an ever-changing landscape, as well as maybe provide some light into what the future may hold. I mean, we're not like fortune tellers here, but we're just trying to say that maybe we could pick something out by the end of the session. So as a brief explanation on the topic of the discussion, future practice is about looking into the new future for signs of how new architectural design services can emerge. So this forum collects a young group of architects to discuss the possible trajectories of how future practice scenarios can unfold, from alternate business models to cross collaborations with other disciplines. So the architect is no longer merely engaging in problem solving, but is engaged in problem forming. So in this time of like economic crisis, I think new forms of adaptation will emerge that will offer like a more diverse spectrum to design, each offering a potential future for architectural practice. So with that, I'd like to start with introducing each of the background for the respective panels. And we'll start with Ms. Shiela Samsuri on the left of me. Yes.
I'm on top of you, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Shiela,
Definitely,
Ms. Shiela is the only woman architect here. So and also what Sophia, sorry. So Shiela Samsuri is head researcher of R+ in the research unit of GDP Architects. So at its core, GDP focuses on way of living in the changing context of the environment. And Shiela is also a visual artist with works exhibited at many contemporary art shows such as Shift, and a finalist of the Malaysia Emerging Artist Awards 2019. So I mean, all of the panels here dabble in more than one interest, and they try to converge or maybe try to create two or more career paths. I think that's interesting with this generation, especially that we try to like diverge and diversify what we the skills that we have. So with Jun Ong, so Jun Ong is a visual artist and an architect. So Jun is I mean, his works is well published with an impressive track record encompassing a lot of art festivals like Georgetown Festival, I Like Marina Bay 2016, and Art Central Hong Kong. So Jun, along with his partner Kyle, is the co-founder of KL-based architecture and design studio, Pow Ideas. It's good to have you on board, Jun. So the next panel will be Mr. Warith Zaki. So Warith is an architecture designer with experience working in Malaysia, UK, Hong Kong, and Dubai. I mean, I know he's worked at Roboform and then 10 Design and then City Lab in Malaysia, and then currently is in Hopkins Architects in Dubai. So he's particularly interested in research-laden design with specialized skills in parametric modeling and high-end visualizations. And I think you're also interested in the fabrication aspect of parametric modeling. Right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, in digital fabrication, specifically now in concrete printing. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So we'll base this, I guess, this discussion into four main themes, which are on the path less taken, operating in the near future, on the culture of learning, and cross-field and multidisciplinary collaboration. So the direction can take off on a tangent from there based on the conversation, but it's just like the themes surround or revolve around those topics. So I'd like to start with the first question. So this is like, macam I'm going to shoot to like one of you or any of you, and it's hoped that this discussion would be a natural one. So I think the first question would be, seeing as each of you has forged your own unique individual pathways with regards to your careers, would you mind sharing with us the important key moments that proved the turning point towards the journey? And I'd like to start with Warith, specifically because I know you're,
Okay.
yeah. So
All right.
I know that you have a lot of experiences like in different countries and in experiencing different working environments. And is there a specific skill set that you're trying to acquire that you can't get in Malaysia that you want to like gain or learn from? Is there like a...
Well, I'm just gonna start on how, you know, there was no key moments actually. There was just a long, arduous path that I have to go through, and then it shaped through my interest in what I wanted to achieve in my career path. But as a beginning, I mean, I always told people that it started off with my tutor back in, I was in Lim Kok Wing University, and then I had a tutor called Nick Arif, and he was my turning point, because he opens up to a lot of inspirations towards me. At that time, I just knew that he came from AA, and he graduated. He also worked with Ron Herron in Akigram. So it opened up to me to find out more about what's happening from that school, because Nick Arif was really a really cool tutor. He doesn't see anything wrong in any of the design presentation from the students. So it started from there. And then at that time, AA was obsessed in computational design. And then I thought, okay, in my final year degree, I thought I wanted to go to UK to learn that, because there was none in Malaysia yet in the academy. And I got myself into Scotland, RGU, Robert Gordon University, and it turned out to be a lot more practical than it is in Malaysia. They have a totally different philosophy than other universities in the UK. So I got quite frustrated, and then I finished my first degree there, and then I told myself I'm not going to continue in this school. So it's about knowing what you want, you know, even from the students' life. And then, so I found out that for my part two, I found out there's a university. I can't afford to go to AA. So I found out there's a university in UK called Oxford Brookes, which has tutors that are also teaching in AA and Bartlett and so on. So I went there and got myself into under tutelage of David Green, which is also from Archigram. And I was really, you know, at that time I thought, you know, okay, this is it. I'm going to be learning a lot of this futuristic stuff. And I forgot that he's already 80 years old. So, and then in the class, it turned out he doesn't teach anything. He wants the student to explore themselves. And then I ended up not learning any computational design, but we were doing a lot of speculative design. So a lot of post-production and that kind of stuff. So I developed myself in that skill. I developed myself in renderings, in photoshopping, in making nice visuals. And then because I still wanted to learn parametric design, so I took the initiative to go into workshops in London. So I took, you know, so I spent my own money to go into workshops, online workshops, physical workshops. And then I learned parametric design, and then that's how I got myself into RoboFold as an intern, which we use robotic arms to do a lot of stuff in London. So I was there for a couple of months as intern. And, you know, so in the end, I developed myself into two things, which is one is the rendering side of things, the visual side of things, and also the parametric design of things, which then led me to Hong Kong intent design, which we can talk about later on. But that's, you know, so it's, as you can see, it's about knowing what you want and trying to achieve it. And then along the way, you sort of go into a lot of path, a winding path, and then you sort of pick up other things as well in the end. And you realize, you know what, maybe I should have, maybe these things are more useful than what I wanted in the beginning, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's good that I guess the main theme with all the panels here is being proactive, I think. Like it's not like the studio teaches you to do this, but it's just your own line of inquiry that decides where you want to go. I mean, similarly with Jun and Shiela, I mean, they're both architecturally trained, but both of them are going into the visual artist as another tandem. So Jun, how'd you get into the visual art thing?
Yeah, I mean, a long story. I think I started off with a very traditional architectural path, you know, went to Taylor's and then did my part one in Melbourne Uni. But I took a chance and went to China after my part one. So I was in Shanghai for about 3 years looking for architecture firm, small scale architecture firm in Beijing and Shanghai. And that was during like the World Expo in Shanghai. So it was pretty exciting, like 2010, I think. So exciting time in China. I mean, now it's obviously a little bit different, but 10 years ago, it was just intense in terms of development. And then went to UK, to Westminster to finish off my part two. But I think the turning point was really after finishing my part two. I mean, being in Europe was a great experience. But, you know, getting a stint at Tom Dixon in London, who is, you know, a known lighting designer, was an interesting turning point. I mean, we all know Tom Dixon as a designer, a product designer, and an industrial designer. But I think not many people know that he's actually venturing into architecture a lot. So there's an arm that's part under Tom Dixon that's called Design Research Studio, and I was actually working in that arm. You know, so who would have thought like a lighting artist or a designer would have started an architectural arm, you know? And he's very smart because from a business point of view, he could, you know, use all his products and all his finishes and spec it for all his architectural projects. So he earns like double the profits, right? You know, so that's brilliant, you know, like, and it's instant publicity for all his products at the same time. Yeah, so that was an interesting, I guess, turning point for me, and also then deciding to come back to Malaysia not long after that, you know, even though I got a job offer in Singapore, but yeah, I decided to just trust my instinct and come back to Malaysia, which was a great blessing in disguise. Yeah.
How long were you working for in the UK before you came back?
About less than a year, not too long. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So how about you? Oh, Shiela wanted to ask you.
Yeah. Did you reach that point where you think it's enough to learn from?
I wish I was there longer, but I think I think living in so many different countries, I was really tired of living overseas. I mean, I was in China for 3 years, Melbourne for another almost 1 year, and then UK for another 2 years. And I felt like I just wanted to be in my comfort zone, which is obviously back home. And yeah, I mean, obviously it would be great if I stayed longer. You know, I think Shiela and I were classmates, so you know, it was a great opportunity to actually stay on longer. But I don't know, if I stayed on longer, I could have missed an opportunity. I wouldn't be where I'm at now. So I guess it's a lot of like fate to trusting things. Yeah.
Malaysia needs you.
Yeah.
Malaysia loves you.
Malaysia loves you.
So basically, for Shiela, where do you think that where did you diverge to go to? I mean, I know you were always creatively tuned in doing your own artworks, but how did you seriously wanted to get into the visual arts and say that you're a visual artist as well as an architect doing research in a practice?
So it's both ways, visual artists and
yes.
Well, there's a lot of key moments, I think quite similarly to what Warith is saying. Coming from university, you do have your tutor, you know, that you look up to. For me, it was Wanazha back in UiTM. So he somewhat like opened up the many, many other ways to look at things. And that somewhat led me to go outside of Malaysia, which then was in Westminster together with Jun actually the same year. And then what happened in Westminster was that my tutor then, is more of an artist rather than an architect. So he's practicing, you know, it's a very obsessive 2 years of drawing lines after lines after lines and then creating a language out of that. So it's very abstract. I didn't know what I get out of it, but the curiosity stays, I guess. So upon coming back in Malaysia, right after, I was practicing in CH, a small medium scale company for 2 years, 2 years and a half, somewhat. And then, you know, as a normal practice, conventional practice, you do drawings, you do concept and stuff like that. But I realized that it's not something that I want to explore. I mean, maybe I'm not good at it. So, you know, so then I came to GDP in order to somewhat broaden up the playground. It's a bigger playground, right? So you can test a lot of things, I guess. Quite somewhat, I got lucky. 6 months in GDP, practicing as a normal architect. R Plus was, the idea of R Plus came about. So I was there forming the team. Like at that point, we had like 20 people just to brainstorm every other week. And then it got down to this, you know, 1-person team, 2-person team. And then we never really got beyond, say, 4 people at one time. So that is the architectural practice sort of like tangent, right? R Plus has been 3 years now, since 2017, formally or not formally. So in between that 2017 to now, just 3 years, long stretch, there's a lot of, I would say, is a feedback loop between what I'm trying to explore with my drawing language that I gained from Westminster, this idea of creating visuals out of some sort of language that you don't really know of. So I guess at that point is a lot of testing ground, try to hit an exhibition or try to hit this event, blah, blah, blah. So it is a feedback loop. So it's not really an independent per se. It's not the visual art per se, totally independent of what I'm doing at R Plus. And yeah, the things that we are doing in R Plus also is somewhat like, it has many branches. So yeah, I guess I got lucky in some ways.
It's like a parallel career. Like I see with you and Jun, it's like a parallel careers almost. So I guess that's a part of the emerging modes of operation. I think that's coming up. I mean, you could be an individual in a group, and then you could also be yourself, representing yourself, and equally get a different type of job you wouldn't get in the other line. So I guess new business models are coming up. I mean, we see, I mean, this is just quoting some examples. We have a company in Belgium called Rotor, where they specialize in taking apart old buildings and selling the parts online, like eBay for used buildings. And well, I mean, there's another company called WeWork that provides an alternate, like a real estate model by long leasing properties and then subletting designed and refurbished offices, you know, but incorporating data. So I think, I mean, personally myself, I've seen an emergence of, I mean, from the architecture background, people going into curatorial services, like doing publications, doing exhibitions. So I would like to ask you three, like, where do you see the practice or the service of an architect splintering off into the next 5 years? I mean, are there areas which do you feel like that is emerging and is growing? I know BIM is now, I mean, it used to be small, but now it's quite a relevant and much needed thing in the industry. But it used to be on the fringes, but after 5 years, 10 years, it slowly became into the idea of, you know, you can't separate an architecture service without BIM now. So what, I'd like to start with Warith, if he feels that, what significant aspects do you see changing in your technology or culture?
In technology, okay. Well, in my experience, I mean, I've been going through these journey of digital fabrication, and I've met a lot of interesting people, such as Riyad Juka, which I brought him to PAM series early this year. So he's one of the best examples that I see, you know, architects getting back into manufacturing, you know, just not by providing consultants, design consultancy, but also making things as well with their bare hands, or not bare hands, but robotic hands or whatever, machines. It is something that, you know, I think a lot of graduates nowadays from especially universities in Europe or the UK, and even now in the Middle East, having sort of a focus towards manufacturing in their design studios. And they are encouraging students to be, you know, to be involved in not just architecture design, but also in getting into other industries, such as facade consultancy and you know, concrete printing, what else, you know. So coming back to that, so I think in my experience, it's one of those industries that, you know, we can get into, you know, making things.
I think going back to the process of fabrication by architects
Yeah.
again, and not relegated to just contractors or suppliers, right?
No.
I understand.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's yeah.
I mean, Jun, do
And
you see any new fields emerging from your end?
my headphone is.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be far fetched. It's just like what.
Yeah. I think with my immediate, like my own studio, I co-founded Power Ideas, and I mean it's a very, very small studio. Very lucky that we kept our studio very lean, and that's how we managed to persevere through the last few months. But they worked really, really hard. And I think it's the challenge is about how do you really multitask, how do you do a lot more with very little manpower and be very smart about it. Like there's only so much we can do, but how can we collaborate and also like outsource certain tasks to the right people and share the profits, like don't try to be greedy and try to do everything, and I think like a trend that I noticed now is so like people are kind of winding things back. I think, financially not everyone is doing great. Everyone wants to keep it really tight and simple. And I think that would severely impact, the way we design moving forward, at least for the next year, maybe, I think as a small design studio, we really can sense this because we are very in touch with like our clients. And we really know how they operate and how they think, So yeah, I think the challenge is to really think small scale, be very smart, be very creative about very simple materials. And I think minimalism is going to kind of make its comeback. People are going to try to keep things simple and comforting. I think it's all about well-being now. Like everyone wants to be comfortable. It's all about yourself first. Your human mind, human psychology, human psyche. What is the space? What is a design that encourages that sort of like moment?
Well-being. I think that's I think that's an emerging, thing within design and architecture. I mean, sustainability is one thing, but well-being is a whole other thing as well.
Yeah.
True. So, Shiela, what do you see emerging in the next maybe?
I'm glad Jun brought about the term well-being, because one of the things that we are looking into is also on future design trends, but trend is not really a good word. Basically, you're trying to forecast the way people live their lives, or the way people work, or the way people shop in the next, say, 2 to 5 years, right? Not too far ahead, just 2 to 5 years. Already we are seeing a lot of shifting post-pandemic. I mean, the pandemic is still here. During this pandemic, there's a lot of shifts in the way you purchase things, the way you live. Your home, your bedroom is somehow your office right now. So there's a lot of ways that I think we need to take a step back and really understand the human psyche. How do we operate? And given all this advancement in technology, especially, how does that gonna influence and change the way we live and the way we operate? I think it's less to do with styles. It's more towards this humanistic approach that the architects should fundamentally champion, right? So I guess that's...
such as like the idea of the experiential designer.
Yeah. I mean, there is that term now, this experiential designer. Like, how do you design experience? It's so intangible, but you're capitalizing on it, and by right, you're supposed to create these experiences, right? You have to design it in a way.
It's funny that we're returning to human-centric.
Exactly.
Whereas it should have always been there, but now being more human-centric, it's like a dominant theme across, I think, like globally, like especially during this pandemic. So moving on with that question, how do you? I know that. I mean, all of you have different ways of, I guess, approaching the types of, I guess, business models or the way you practice. How I want to know, like for like, maybe I'll start with Shiela. How, especially she's in a design research practice within a corporate company, GDP. How do you see research being a sort of a value to an addition to architectural consultancy and practice? I mean, because I know people don't really pay for research. But how do you make that work? Yeah.
I mean, if I was, this is me sharing the lessons throughout these 3 years. I think within R+, we're not trained researchers per se, right? None of us has any PhD or whatever. So it's really research by practice, by doing a lot of things and try to tap into many different tangents. And then I guess throughout these years, we somewhat understood, especially during the MCO, we sort of like do this big reassessment as to what R+ should be and how do we be more relevant in the way that we fit back into the practice. We are only 4 people and we are serving to say 250 worth of architects. So the ratio is like that big, it's big. So how do you play your role in the way that Jun was saying about his POW? Capitalize on each individual strength. So in a way, it is very much collaborative in nature. How we put in value, not necessarily monetary in that sense, is the way that we fit back to the real life projects that the company is undertaking.
That's true. Yeah, I agree.
And most of it, I think, is safe to say that it's on the front end. Like even before the given brief from the client, like you were saying just now, it's not about the how anymore, it's about the why. Why are you building this mall in the first place? And how are things going to change by the time this building is being built upon? Because architecture is a very long process, right? So there's a lot of forecasting in the future. Tapping into the project. And we do also have some independent research that may not necessarily off to relevancy at that time, but it creates this big data bank, so to say, that we can fit into upcoming projects and special niche projects as well as competition. So I guess the value is in that, is how you fit back into the project and create a different kind of designed architecture.
Interesting. For Warith, I mean, I know that in terms of computational design, I mean, in Malaysia, it's still relegated to just design-based forming design as in the shapes, but we've never really taken a more deeper understanding of how computation design can be used within buildings itself. I mean, I think that we've never really taken off from that surface level idea of parametric design.
True.
So, and then we've never jumped to the idea of fabrication from parametric. So, I mean, I'm interested in what you've learned over there that is valuable in Hopkins, in 10 design, that you would feel that you'd like to maybe start off in Malaysia.
I didn't have a lot of experience in Malaysia. I was just in City Lab for 3 months doing the Lenggong. Okay, that's a story actually I can share. So I just came back from the UK, just from RoboFull that time. So I was really into all this parametric design, computational design. It just happened at that time there was a competition for Lenggong Museum. And then I joined Rizwa Fathan City Lab Studio. He's really into it. He's really into parametric design. It's just that he doesn't know how to do it. He came from Hani Rashid's class in Columbia University, way back then. So, and then from there, at that time, it was just basically trying to model up the skeletal structure, that builds up the whole museum, and it turned out to be one of the winning concept. So, and in Malaysia, it was just at that time I didn't find any studio or firm that was practicing parametric design at all, to be honest. Maybe there were some guys using Rhino, but not in terms of Grasshopper or computational design. And surely they didn't build anything out of that. So it brings me to the other story and then I went to Hong Kong to 10 Design, where the whole office is totally different in terms of when you ask about how can research add value into your office. Yeah? So in 10 Design, I was there for 2.5 years. So every month we will have some sort of a personal achievement presentation. So once a month, so we will have, like, over the lunch, the directors or even someone who wants to volunteer, they will be able to present anything that they have done in their other projects outside of office. So it's quite interesting, because you will see a lot of these people coming, exhibiting their own personal works in the museums, in the galleries, And myself at that time, I was involved in the new artisans. So we built a parametric wall called Rehal. So I presented that, and then so in the end, what it added into the office is that the quality of confidence in this individual staff that you have, so the office encourages everyone to be, to be someone outside of the office instead of just the machines in the office producing whatever you need to for the project. So in the end, I think confidence is a very high value. It will definitely help in terms of giving quality in design thinking to your team when it comes to the live projects. So you have some person being very passionate in painting. So we will have a live ongoing projects presentation to the client with paintings. And then you have people like me who were doing some sort of a parametric design wall, and then we'll be contributing that into the live design projects. And so it's just not drafting, it's just not designing based on your team leaders idea and that sort of stuff. So everyone has their own strength that they will contribute into the project as well, in many ways. It can be presentation, design, software, anything.
Interesting. Yeah. For Jun, I wanted to ask, I mean, basically, you're a small outfit, but you guys collaborate with a lot of people, especially for items that you want other people's specializations and their skills. So I wanted to ask on the nature of collaboration, one, and then maybe how do you ask or convince your client to get on board with more than one collaborator, for example? Especially, I think, because you guys are good at curating really nice things. You guys have the eye, but of course that involves, I mean, having money and then having the willingness to try out new people that they might not be that big. But how do you push to clients in getting that that direction? I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Like, I think it's a lot about educating the clients. I think we are partially quite lucky to get clients that are exposed, to that you have to the fact that you have to commission artists for original works. You don't get a contractor to just duplicate something you saw on Instagram or Pinterest or whatever. So we're lucky to get some clients like that, but there are also some clients who are maybe not as educated, and you think like, oh, why would I need to commission someone else? Where my contractor, Awong or whatever, can just duplicate it for a fraction of the price. So it's really to start off building a portfolio, really, and then these clients would then say, hey, I want that work. And for us, it's also to kind of shape the brief so that it makes them think that these works are very unique to them. Like no one else in this world has another work like that. It's commissioned specifically for the design that we're providing to your space. So it's a lot about convincing the clients and educating them slowly. And hopefully that will be kind of like a butterfly effect. The clients would see other works that we've done, and then they kind of want that, and then they'll just continue on. But I think in Malaysia, it's always a struggle, because I think when it comes to ideas, people don't really put too much value in it until they see something tangible. That's why, designers, we struggle, especially if you're independent or you're a smaller outfit. They are more willing to pay contractors higher margins or cost because they get to see something physical coming out from them, but they don't see ideas as something that is valuable,
Because I think
it's what we're doing.
I think you guys are really good with branding, like branding as a skill set. That's something valuable. I think a lot of practices don't actually incorporate branding into their proposals. So whereas you provide value with branding, that's the whole thing, right?
I think we're not that uptight. Like as designers, we're not so uptight with, like we have to conform to a certain like look or a certain like way of how people should perceive us as designers. You know, we are quite fluid. You know, we don't conform to a certain style, or we could be anything. You know, for us is what the brief that the client gives to us, and how can we react to that and shape it to our way. And with branding and Instagram, I think it's like an organic process. We're not taught that we have to use Instagram to make money. You know, like no one teacher taught us that. You know, but it's just a business tool. You know, and so happen Instagram is just free marketing tool for a lot of small outfits. You know, we can't afford to get publicity on like a billboard and stuff like that. You know, so it's something that is very personal because we manage our own kind of like I code my own website, you know, because we can't afford a web designer, and we control our own Instagram account, you know, so it's all like super hands-on. You know, we don't get someone to like manage our stuff, so we really get to see what people respond to the stuff we put, you know, on our social media, etc. You know, so that,
I mean, basically, I mean, our generation utilizes all that basically to engage the market in a way.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, do you think? I mean, we're seeing like an atomization or the splintering of these architectural services coming out of an architectural background or like education. So, how do you feel that we should encourage this growth in the splintering up of these, I guess, added on services, or maybe other specializations? So I think I'd like to ask maybe Warith on that. I know that you want to bring what you've learned back to Malaysia, Warith, in terms of maybe applying fabrication, post-parametric design, and actually building it. So how do you think we could encourage?
I think there's an easy, Sorry, you were.
No, please.
Yeah, so I think that's an easy answer actually, because I've been thinking about that a lot, and it has to begin from the university. It has to begin from the academy. You know, you have to. If you look into all these universities outside of Malaysia, they have a lot of focus, a lot of specialist focus. You know, they have focus into parametric design, speculative design. They have focus into manufacturing in certain schools. So I think that is still lacking in terms of parametric design. I'm not sure about other things, but in terms of parametric design, we're still lacking that in school, and also like things like BIM. You know, it's still not being taught over in school to be used, as opposed to let me quote an example. I'm working Hopkins Architects now. So one of a few of our specialists in BIM is actually those graduates, part one graduates from the universities, you know. So so they've been trained from the beginning in school to be involved in this atomization of things, you know, like BIM and that sort of stuff. And there are also many other firms, small firms in Dubai, such as X Architects, which they're quite famous in design. They're always featured in design. They rely a lot on university graduates, also university interns in doing in implementing their design presentation, you know, design models. So that shows that, you know, it has to go back to the core of teaching in architecture, where, you know, it's not just about designing buildings. It has to be about a lot of stuff. There has to be a lot of focus in many other things rather than just designing buildings. You know, when I was in Oxford Brookes, we had a whole semester just doing films, you know, that kind of stuff. And then a lot of our friends actually, I'm not sure whether you remember, back in 2012, the Silver Award for
was it?
Was it the Butler?
No, Riba Silva, Butler. There was a guy from Butler. He did film. The whole project is just film. It's just animation. You know, it doesn't have anything to do about building design or anything. But now he's really big. He's in, you know, after graduating from Butler, he moved on to focusing in that particular industry, and I think he's now in Hollywood or something like that. So
crazy.
Yeah. So I think my answer is that it has to go back to school. So you need to have a lot of these tutors teaching, you know, multidisciplinary stuff. You know, not just building design.
Interesting.
Can I add on that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good point that Warith touches on, it has to start from school and universities, right, having a certain direction. But I also want to add that practice should be more welcoming to these new sets of, it is many forms of languages, isn't it? And how architecture should be operated. I mean, right now we are seeing the common understanding of, say, parametric design is just surface. But ultimately, it is about problem solving. It solves a lot of building design, the parameters of it. I think practice should be a bit more open in understanding this different language. It's not on butter paper anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think education is important, but also like setting the expectations to these upcoming architects or graduates, that it's okay to not. Yeah, you can run a business without actually designing a building, or actually building a building at the end. So like, it's okay to change the trajectory halfway through your education. I think a lot of them have that fear. I mean, I didn't know that I'll be doing stuff that I'm doing now, when I was studying, because I think that we are all groomed to be probably working for a practice, and I think Malaysia, maybe, it would be great if there are certain bigger practices that are more welcoming of what Shiela said, and also giving the flexibility for some smaller outfits to still operate on their own, and learning from the trial and errors they gain, running a business, but then having the possibility of working together on other projects too, with the support of a bigger company, And I think that would be a very interesting ecosystem, that we can create. Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, in terms of, all of these specializations are actually niches. So do you think we should actually push our skills abroad as well? Because obviously, you have a niche skill, but then you're in the architecture or design field. So do you think we should go beyond architecture itself as the market, and maybe approach our skills elsewhere beyond Malaysia? I think you have to survive somehow. And I think, do you think that currently Malaysia has the skills to compete globally? I mean, any one of you could answer.
I think, I think when it comes to like materials and labor, like I think we're one of like the cheapest nations, right? At least in Asia, it's so easy to just go down the road and find like a metal welder to just weld a bunch of stuff. Like if you were in London or Europe, I imagine it'd be so much more difficult and expensive. We have everything kind of set, materials, labor, infrastructure, but I think what we're lacking is the opportunity and the skill set. And for me, like being in Malaysia is never an obstacle to like seek opportunities overseas, especially with the new normal. We're so used to working online. We never thought that we could work digitally for a good 3 months, but we kind of did it. We got a couple of project proposals done without meeting, our staff, so that was interesting. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, does Warith or Shiela has anything?
No, I want to ask Jun, how do you guys operate online? Do you have like a certain social platform?
We use and we started off using Google Hangouts, which was so basic. Like I think we found Zoom too intimidating. It's too corporate and too formal. There's just too many buttons to press. So Hangouts were chill. So we throughout the 3 months we met every day. Like we met every day, and like my partner and I, Carve, we made a point to really give a lot of space to our staff, our team of 4. So, we set the task for the day, and we kind of entrusted them to perform these tasks. And then we'll probably meet if they want to meet halfway through the day. So I think it's really about building confidence, like what Warith said, like building confidence in the staff, and it's a good opportunity to empower them. Yeah. Because you kind of have to trust that they are doing work at home.
Exactly.
Not just that 1 hour when you're meeting, probably in your pajamas or whatever. So, it's about entrusting them, really. Yeah.
Can I add to that? And it might be a bit of tangent, but in my case, in Hopkins in Dubai, we were doing construction for the Expo Dubai 2020, which is supposed to happen end of this year. And then, so the construction is finished because it was due on November. And then, but we had another project for the Expo, which is called Expo Legacy, turning the Expo Master Plan into a commercial hub and business hub. And that was our main project in 2020. And, so COVID happened. and everyone went back to home, work from home. And then the post-legacy, the post-Expo legacy project was put on hold because Expo is postponed for another year. So basically our office is out of job. And so naturally you would think, the company will shut down, of course. But it just happened that, our HQ, our headquarters is in London, and Hopkins Architects is in London. And they just happened to be having a lot of projects. They were actually overwhelmed by projects. So what happened after that is that instead of, right now, there's an agreement where all the Dubai staff workers are being absorbed into the London office through work from home, because now we all in the same ground. All of the Dubai staffs are now, London staffs are now working from home as well. So we are on even ground. Everyone is working through computers. It was a great opportunity because the London team was like, you know what, why don't we just get the Dubai teams to be part of us? So I've been working based on London timings now. So it's usually from 12 to 10 p.m. at night every day. But it also brings me to another question where if this I was wondering if this happens in Malaysia, right? Where you can have big firms like GDP, and then you can hire someone in Kedah or Penang, and you can have them working through like this, work from home, every one of them, and then they can also get the same salary as the urban salary, So,
That's true.
because I'm just talking because now London is paying us, paying our team in Dubai. So I was thinking this also opens up the border of working in urban areas and rural areas. And there's this fact that if you work in the rural areas, you get less salary, regardless of your experience or anything. So since we have this platform now where everyone can work from home, and then it's very seamless now, to be honest. Why not? You can have someone in Penang and Kedah working together with your team, and then they can get the same salary. So it's a bit of tangent, but I'm just it's putting out there.
I think it's important to highlight the way we work as an architectural practice, because it does influence the product, the outcome, whatever that is. The idea of trust, the idea of empowering the other colleagues to, you have this time of a day, I don't care, just finish it, right? That sort of thing is no longer about the more hours you put, and therefore the better you are as a staff or whatever. And what Warith highlighted is very, very true, because during the MCO, we were working with overseas architects. So they are very seamless in their file, their storage and all that. So kind of like kelangkabut a bit lah, but you got to catch up a bit. I think Malaysia has to try to adapt to this new model of practice. Very important.
Yes.
And then I think it has to cut across generations. I'm pretty sure Hopkins has a lot of generational gap as well. In GDP, you have 3 generations working under the same timeline, the same roof, right? So you got, if you put it into category, that would be like the boomers, the Generation X, the millennials, and maybe the next few years, the Gen Y is coming in. So there's a lot of languages that you have to adapt in communicating, especially in terms of working as well. So I think that's important to highlight in future practice.
Interesting. So I'd like to bring this conversation to, I guess, more into a collaborative sort of aspect or question theme. So I found an interesting quote by Urban Think Tank. Everyone wants to design, but doesn't anyone want to think? So I think it's a very pertinent question. So the culture of learning or research within a practice is relatively uncommon in Malaysia, at least. There is a common understanding among architects that if you do design, then you are doing research. I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, some of you might feel that it is research, but how do you inculcate that culture within how you do work? I mean, maybe Jun would like to start.
Yeah, I think like designing for a client, like it's very different. Like, I mean, you'll be lucky if you're able to also do research if the time and budget permits, it will be a dream project,
Correct.
But I think for us, research can be as short as half an hour to like 10 years, you know. Even a half an hour sit down, that's also a form of research. You know, it doesn't have to be like super expensive or long-winded, you know, and research can take up so many different forms, you know, whether it's prototyping, whether it's actually a sit down online reading, etc. And I think you know, for us, we're such a small company, so things move really fast. And for us, research has to evolve according to our speed too. You know, we don't have that
luxury,
amount of people that of labor that we can kind of like, you know, exploit. You know? So it's really about, okay, we kind of tested a couple of options. You know, we've got the story. Let's move on to the next idea now. And that's why we're called Power Ideas. You know, we're never a design studio. For us, it's always about incorporating any form of idea. You know, and that's why we're getting a lot of like interesting applicants to our studio. It's a lot of non-architectural people.
Interesting.
Filmmakers, photographers, graphic designer, interior architects. Very rarely we get like a part 2 graduate. Yeah. So we get like CSM, you know, grads, you know. So it's, yeah, like we would love you to make uniforms for us, but that's about it. You know? Like, so it's interesting to see like how people perceive like our setup, you know. Yeah, which is pretty unexpected. Yeah.
That's cool.
In terms of Warith, how do you feel that culture is within Hopkins? You did previously mention you had that session, but do you think,
Well, sad to say that Hopkins is a little bit more corporate than 10 Design. It was back in 10 Design, we were encouraged to do a lot of things outside of the office, you know, and then we have to present it in the office once a month. Hopkins is a little bit different. It's a little bit corporate, but we do, you know, they do encourage some sort of research. As for instance, that you know, just recently I was doing that Mars proposal. And then, you know, it was featured in the zine, and then apparently there's some companies who approach Hopkins because I don't know how they did it. They investigated my name and then they found out I'm working for Hopkins, and then they approach Hopkins asking whether we actually do design for Mars. So that kind of stuff. And then I thought I got into trouble because I got an email from the big guy, and he said, you know, Warith, if anyone wants to invest in this project, please get us involved. In a way, I'm just saying that they don't on the surface, they don't really, unlike 10 Design, they don't really tell you to do it outside of the office, but they encourage you to do it behind it. And then if you know, if you somehow manage to gain some grounds on your research, they will be more than happy to invest in you. So not sure whether that answers the question, but
no, it's a good like reference to it. Yeah, Shiela, if you may add.
Now I asked Warith,
Sure.
Are you in a dedicated team in Hopkins that is just addressing parametric way of designing?
No.
So it's a bigger pool.
Yeah, it's a bigger pool. Yeah, so okay. It's the whole team comprises of many skill sets.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
we don't have any department for parametric, or unlike back in 10 Design, we do have that kind of stuff, but not in Hopkins. It's a bit traditional, slightly.
Right. Do you think it's better, the fact that you are in a bigger pool, so to say?
It was more fun back in 10 Design in terms of because you are supposed to expose yourself to your colleagues in the office, that you're good in this, and that the other guy is good in that, and that girl, and then that lady is good in that, and then you sort of, every week you will just talk about it among yourself. But in Hopkins, it's not so much, because I don't know what this guy is good about. It's good outside of the office and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I would say it's more. I'm not sure. Actually.
Okay.
Not.
I guess it's quite a similar experience as to how we operate within GDP as well, because we have 4 people. Right now we're 3 people actually. And then you sort of like, over the years, you sort of need to do an extension arm towards the other tentacles of GDP. So you got 6 teams within GDP. Yeah. So you gotta, trying to interact with them is also another thing, Yeah. I guess
Yeah,
collaboration in terms of the many individuals within the practice. I think that's also collaborative in nature, isn't it? I mean, like Pao, Jun, you're going outside of the practice and collaborate with other people.
Yeah.
Right? I guess for us, it's more within this umbrella.
Yeah.
I guess that's collaborative in nature as well. Yeah. Don't know whether I'm answering your question, actually, Sam.
No, it's fine. Would you guys be keen to take one question before
of
we
course, yeah.
continue? I think there's quite a good question here. As you know, this is from Nick Nakia. Thanks for sending in your question. As you know, not everyone has the opportunity to be a professional part 3. So is it possible one day that graduated architects will also be given the opportunity, with license of course, to endorse small-scale projects such as individual bungalow or small renovation work? Maybe it can also help the architecture industry to be more advanced and fair to all levels. Just my 10 cents. Maybe AI1 Sophia would also like to help out on this question.
That's a very much a practice
Oriented.
consultancy practice question. Yeah, I do see the point of view here, because there's also another question, similar question, comparing, putting graduate architects as well as building draftsmen. Building draftsmen can submit plans up to, there's a certain limit, but they can submit plans for small scale projects. And engineers can submit plans for a single unit, like industry, a single volume. So whether there's a possibility that graduate architects should be able to have the ability to do the same or have a similar platform. Currently, the Architects Act doesn't allow that, but except that if you are registered interior designers, you can do renovation work. You can do submission for renovation work. Can check on Architects Act on that. There's a latest revision, because interior design is a new profession being introduced under Architects Act. But there is the validity of the question. I can help to take it up with the board and see whether there is a potential of this. But the subject matter that we talking today is more like specialization of areas of specialization, rather than having architects have the same line of career, whereby you graduate as an architect and then eventually you want to open up a consultancy practice which is very much regulated. You becoming like a jack of all trades. What you're talking about is that instead of becoming jack of all trades, you want to pick an area of specialization where it is appreciated by the industry, and also complete and complement, like Jun said, complement the ecosystem, architectural services ecosystem. I do agree with Jun's opinion, whereby currently our architectural services ecosystem is very much basic. It's dry in that sense. We don't have that specialization, research and learning and research capacity, culture. Yes, yeah. So that as much I can respond to that question.
I wanted to add to that just quickly. I think, like Architect Wan Sofia was saying, of course, interior designers, but there's also a new inclusion into the Act, which is architectural technologists. Now, under the architectural technologists, there's a diverse range of classifications. So, of course, one of it would be BIM, and then you have facade designers, and then you have, I think, many different areas where you're also doing forensic design, for example. So I think there is that opportunity where, rather than looking at sort of at an entry level, trying to, I think, certify a whole building, you're looking at compartmentalizing special skill sets required in a design process or a building process that you can actually collaborate. So I think this is the new opportunity, an opportunity for graduates that already exists within the Act. And I think just have a look, open up the website, and quickly just download what you need.
So basically looking into like sub branches of it and specializing within those areas. Understand?
Yeah, actually in the professional architectural practice at the moment, there is a new, not to say agenda, new proposal whereby the industry should move towards self-regulation. Self-regulation meaning is that because the architects or the regulated professionals have already given the task under the act to take responsibilities, to take some liabilities, and there is no, on that basis, there is no need of a second layer having authority to actually approve plans and all that. So they're talking about having a automatic approval on planning and building plan. But to enable to do that, there must be, like Sufyan said, the responsibility and liabilities and what do they call it? It's a responsibility has to be broken up into compartments or special area or specialization, because one person to take responsibility of all may be too overwhelming. So one way of doing it, breaking it up, meaning lighting take their own responsibility, and they are also regulated and liable for their own areas. Research, if you doing research, then you also have to endorse on your research and output, and then take responsibility and liability on that part. Only then the principal submitting person would be able to take the package overall, overarching things, you know. In other words, instead of breaking up into architecture, engineering, CNS, MNE, now there will be a lot more branches of area of profession in that sense.
Understand.
Yeah.
Understand. That's good. Before we take on one other question, it's quite a good question. I just wanted to ask, we're almost nearing the end of the panel. So what advice would each of you give to young architects or designers trying to carve a new route within their careers? Not necessarily having the trajectory of becoming an architect at the end of the tunnel, but macam I'm graduating part 1, I know that I'm good in something, so how do you advise them to actually follow that route? I know it depends on who's answering, but I just like to gauge what the answers are. If Jun would start.
Sorry, so you're asking about what sort of
advice?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know whether I'm in a position to give any advice, but I think just speaking from experience, I'm a person who trusts my gut feelings a lot, and for me, it's always about a fluid journey. You know, I don't like to settle down, which is also very annoying. You know, like I keep getting distracted very easily. But I think that's good, you know, especially in your younger years, you know, to kind of test the waters, explore things that might interest you, you know. And I think it would be great to also like know that Malaysia is home, you know that, you know, there's a lot you can do coming back to Malaysia, or even working overseas but doing stuff in Malaysia still, you know. So yeah, I think that would be great, especially now, you know, where maybe traveling overseas is a bit restrictive, you know, maybe people can spend some time focusing on what they want to explore in Malaysia and back home. Yeah, it's all back to the whole brain drain kind of, you know, problem that we have here, you know. Yeah, and just being very open-minded about the things that you learn in school, you know, like you learn one thing, but doesn't mean you have to execute that as a career, you know. So being very fluid about things, yeah, I think that's key. Yeah.
That's a good answer. Thanks. Warith?
Well, in my opinion, I mean, for graduates, right? For graduates, so
young architects, young designers.
Young architects, graduates, find internship. You know, that's what I did. And what are you interested in most on? What is your passion? You know, whether you want to do, you're good in renderings, or you're good in filmmaking, or you're good in certain things in design. try to find an internship. It doesn't have to be in Malaysia. You can, I know that it's COVID now, it's hard to travel, but hopefully in the near future, you'll be able to travel again. But find a place where you can actually learn from the masters themselves. I used to get this question from a student, like, how do you get an internship? Is it easy? To be honest with you, it's really easy. Well, for one example, in China or Japan especially, it's really easy for you to get internship if you want to, but you do need to have a certain finance in your hand, so you can support yourself for a couple of months, because usually internship they don't pay as well, but some do pay enough, depending. So and then from there on, once you do your internship, you will know whether you're right for these things that you want to do, or you want to move on to other things. So that's my advice for young architects and young graduates, because it's one of the easiest way to learn from masters. Instead of the other way is like also enroll into workshops, and in a lot of these classes, you have like AA coming to Malaysia doing workshops. Why not join them and then try to build your background? You need to have a background. You need to have some sort of a strength in your back. It's like I'm good in this. So if you're talking about how do I sell myself, so what are you trying to sell? So you need to build that thing, that value that you're trying to sell. By going into, like I said, internships, learn from the masters, or go into workshops, join workshops. Don't just stay in the school or in the office. Join other things. Enroll yourself. I think that's my advice.
Thank you, Sheila.
I'm just gonna add on to Warith's points. To develop, I think having skill set is one thing, but also ultimately is about knowing your value, right? What is it that you are, not to say selling, that you're fighting for in some ways, right? Know your purpose. But yeah, I mean, saying it is easy. It's not a short-term thing. It's a long journey in trying to find your purpose as well, and trying to find your value in between. So it takes a lot of perseverance and also persistence in trying in a lot of things. It's a long journey, but I guess once you are curious enough to look at things beyond what they are, and I think that's a good way to start. Yeah.
I think it's good. It's good advice from all three panels. I think within the time given, I think it was quite fruitful. I would have liked to talk longer with you guys, and probably I will in real space sometime after this.
Shamin,
Yes.
there's one good question here from the chat. I can read up. This is from Clarissa KL, come from FB actually. Okay. If so, I don't know what if so means. What if so referring to? The question is that what's the balance between a technocratic society, a hyper specialization, versus a more dialogical knowledge, more arts and humanities inquiry between all these specialists?
I see. I guess what's the balance between a highly technocratic and a more humanistic centered approach? I mean as a society, it's hard to say but I think with anything there's a bit of a balance to both. So I don't know if anyone else can answer Clarissa.
It's about personality, isn't it? Really, I think. I don't know, the panel would want to answer that.
Yeah, I think it's really about finding that balance. I think with what's happening with the new normal, we're so focused on working digitally, on technology and stuff. But I'm sure in a couple of months there would be a reaction to it. Like people will have enough of computers. Like when I go home, the last thing I want to see is a Black Mirror. So I just want to stare at a blank wall or like something like alive.
Black Mirror is good, John.
It was scary.
Scary, yeah. Like you don't want to be looking at Black Mirrors anymore. Yeah, like mentally, it's I think finding that balance. Whether it's work related, whether it's your own life. And also like stepping back and questioning why you're doing this. What's the reason? What's the angle here? I think it's really a good reminder what happened in the past few months, like for us to really reset and rethink. I think if that didn't happen, like the MCO, I think we'll be just full-fledged like robots, just marching like
chasing cars.
Yeah, chasing cars, So I think it's really a good cause to really rethink what you want to do on a personal level, and also as part of a bigger ecosystem.
And there's another question here. Maybe Sheila would like to answer. How the time constraint affect the quality of research? That in practice, architectural practice especially, we don't really have time for research.
Yeah.
Because we have to come up with something almost immediately.
Yeah. I think, we are in the team the unit is in a quite a, not to say privileged, because we are dedicated, specialized into just research. But having said so, our research also ranges. Like there's a 1 day research, I'm not gonna lie. There's a 2 hours research, right? There's a 1 day research. There's a 1 week research. I think it comes down to the efficiency of what sort of project is it of, and then whether it's worthy to put weightage in it. So I think you got to be clever. So, if I were to pin it down to categories, it would be like the design development research would extend to maybe a month, or the more complicated one would be extending to say 3 months. And then the shorter period, say conceptual research, may just extend to just 1 week. So it varies. It's reading the research into its relevancy.
Based on your experience at GDP, with that unit, the 3 years experience, do you think that the research unit has really added value to the company?
Yes, especially this year, the fact that we've just completed this 1 year, less than 1 year long research about basically placemaking, where we somewhat collaborate with other social planner within in-house, and then also our planner, GDP planner. So it's a lot of a collaboration that goes within the research itself. If there is one key takeaways that I would say is that idea of collaborative nature of work. It's not entirely independent. We are not entirely independent on our own. It is interaction with architects, planners, others.
I'm just curious. Like, I have a question for you. Like, would you operate very differently if you were an independent researcher? Like, you're not part of GDP. Like you're on your own.
I would say so.
Okay. So it's kind of a bit biased, whatever you're researching now, because this is specifically for GDP.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see what sort of outcome you would produce if you were independent think tank.
I guess, in some ways I do channel it out in my visual art kind of experiments. So I guess it's a feedback loop in that sense. But I think it will be totally different if we're not under GDP.
Do you think there's a lot of clients who would want to spend on research to add value in Malaysia especially? Or do you think it will be quite a struggle?
There is, I think it's fair to say there is, right, Sam? It's fair. Me and Sam's working in the same team. But there are very niche clients in a way that they are willing to wait, and they are willing to take the value and actually implement the value. Because it's one thing that you convey to them this research document and research brief, but outside of implementing it, that's also, it's beyond us, right? So I guess there are a few clients that actually took it to the next level, like they are ready to implement it. And by saying so, it's taking a lot of somewhat courage to explore new market territory for them. So it's not really as simple as it is.
I think personally, it's about angling research. You can't give research dry in a dry mode to clients. You have to angle it to branding. You have to give a value that is somewhat tied to like the bottom dollar, but it's through their eyes and their language, where you disguise research as something else. I think that's quite important.
Language is very interesting because you do tailor it to different clients. Like this one check out macam ni, this one check out macam tu.
I think Jun experienced the same thing. How do you tailor it to their language, right? Yeah.
I think producing reports and research is an interesting way of kind of, I guess, finding different avenues to push through. Like, I think the past few months, we've been getting a lot of inquiries to produce concept research or proposals, right? And they're full-fledged design proposal, but we'll never know whether it's going to get built or not. And the clients don't mind paying us just for that concept proposal, So it's like a full report, research on like the kind of materials, the kind of, layout that would fit into that kind of scenario. So that is a kind of a different avenue, which is kind of interesting to explore, for designers who are independent out there.
Yeah.
Not all things have to be built at the end, sometimes.
Warith, how about the culture in your office? What is the research culture, and in your area, the nature of your personal work? Does it involve a lot of research in parametric design or computational design?
When I say research, it might mean iteration. So we do a lot of iterations in design.
Yeah.
So yes, we do.
Possibilities, the possible
yes,
outcome.
Definitely,
kind of
yes.
thing. Yeah.
Usually we will come up with a lot of alternatives in terms of design and the way how it answers the questions that the project is posing. And also another way is that the way we work is that we also delegate some of the research to some of the younger members in our team. We have interns as well in the office, so so they are very, very excited about doing all these graphics and doing research online and going through, and then we'll have a discussion at the end of the day of how can we incorporate this research into the design, and then come up with iterations of many things. That's how we do it. We delegate it to.
So is it do you see, based on that, is it possible that the research unit or specialization can exist in Malaysia, providing services anywhere in the world? Would that be possible in the future, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Research has a value. So I know, I know some people like Taufik. I think he has his own firm that does research and he's making money out of it. And and we have Shiela and Jun Ong who's life it's proven that you can definitely monetize research. And
Shamim, over to you.
I mean, basically, it's been a good conversation, definitely, and I mean, I hope to have more conversations with you, but I think it's almost coming to an end. And thank you guys for joining us and taking the time out of your schedule. I think it's been very insightful for the short 1 hour and 20 minutes that we've been talking. And I think should we take a group photo now, or?
Oh.
Yes. Over to you, Salam. Do you think you want to do?
Okay, first session we take a panelist photo first. Okay, ready, smile, 1, 2, 3. Okay, wait, another shot.
Oh, new normal.
New normal.
Awkward.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right. Okay, with the team. Wait. Okay. Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, nice. Another shot. Okay, another shot. 1, 2, 3. Okay, nice. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to the audience for joining. Thank you very much for taking the time. I know it's beyond 6. You can't think now, so have a good rest.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a very good session. Sufyan will definitely continue this as an individual, a separate series on its own. So let's think about the future episodes on what we want to do. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, the panelists, and hope to see you again soon.
Pleasure. Hope I'll be able to fly back to Malaysia soon.
No, you do.
Thanks, Warith.
I miss Malaysia.
Warith, I will mention to Nik Arif that you mentioned him. Nik Arif is actually my partner in the office.
Yes. Tell him it's because of him.
He will be very happy to hear that.
I think that's the responsibility of every architect, is to inspire another architect. So I hope that's happening with this session now and with future sessions. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. I think people are asking for the signing code. Salam, could you?
Okay, so we have to say goodbye and sign off so that Salam can put the sign out code.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila. Thanks, Jun. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks,
Sufyan
Greg.
and Sophia.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow.